Welcome to the legendary heart of the Hudson River Valley, where two timeless neighboring villages, Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown, transform into a real-life Halloween town every October. Every year, thousands of people make the pilgrimage to New York to experience Halloween in this legendary setting. These villages, known collectively as Sleepy Hollow Country, are haunted by the legend of the Headless Horseman. The horseman's iconic silhouette can be found everywhere all year round, from street signs and school mascots to local businesses, all carrying the same warning: don't lose your head. Here, the horseman is both feared and celebrated by villagers and visitors alike. The legend of Sleepy Hollow is one that's been woven into the fabric of American storytelling for over 200 years. With countless retellings and adaptations. Its author, Washington Irving, is often forgotten as the man who first penned the tale, inspired by the real village along the Hudson River. Many people don't even realize that Sleepy Hollow is in fact a real place, one where you can still retrace the steps of the ill-fated schoolmaster Ichabod Crane, hunted by the horsemen through the misty hills of this old Dutch country. Others may have heard of the historical inspirations and folk tales that may have influenced Washington Irving to pen his tale that sent this little village into legend. But how did the Headless Horseman come to haunt Sleepy Hollow? Why do people travel from all over the world to experience a Sleepy Hollow Halloween? To find out, we must return to the often forgotten origins here in the historic Hudson Valley, where the locations of the Headless Horseman are more real than you might imagine.
Greetings from legendary Sleepy Hollow.
We are your hosts, Lindsay and Jonas, Halloween and history enthusiasts, proud to call Sleepy Hollow Country home. In this episode, we invite you to join us on a journey along our favorite local haunts as we uncover the mysterious origins of the Headless Horseman. So don't forget to subscribe, hold on to your head, and enter this enchanted region where legends lie between history and mystery here in Sleepy Hollow. America's first famous ghostly tale, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving, first appeared in a collection of short stories in the sketchbook of Geoffrey Crayon, published from 1819 to 1820. Among its pages are two of his most legendary Hudson Valley tales, Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. In the story, a Connecticut Yankee schoolmaster named Ichabod Crane moves to the old Dutch village of Sleepy Hollow. Irving described him as tall and exceedingly lank, and looking like some scarecrow eloped from a cornfield. Ichabod was a superstitious man, both fascinated and terrified by the local lore. And most of all, the chief specter, the Headless Horseman, said to be the ghost of a Hessian soldier who lost his head during the Revolutionary War. Legend has it that the horseman tethers his nightly steed among the graves in this churchyard, rising each night to search for his head. Ichabod courts Katrina Van Tassel, the coquettish daughter of a wealthy farmer, much to the annoyance of her suitor Brom Bones. At a harvest party at the Van Tassel home, there was spirited dancing and ghostly tales told. Ichabod intended to propose to Katrina, but he was rejected by the heiress. He leaves the frolic at the witching hour, crestfallen on the old horse Gunpowder, only to encounter the formidable horseman. A furious chase ensues through the region of shadow, and Ichabod believes that if he can but get to the bridge, he will be safe. He reaches the other side only for the goblin's head to be hurled and hit his cranium. The next morning, Ichabod was missing. Gunpowder was found with a trampled saddle, tracks of horse hooves, and the hat of Ichabod close beside it, a shattered pumpkin. Some say Ichabod fled in shame and went on to study in New York City. Others believe Brom Bones disguised himself as the horseman to frighten away his rivals so he could wed the fair Katrina. But the old Dutch wives, who are the best judges on these matters, maintain that Ichabod was spirited away by supernatural means and is a favorite story to tell around the fireside. In the story's postscript, the narrator admits he doesn't believe half of it himself. Perhaps that open ending is what's made the tale endure for over 200 years. We invite you to read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow or listen to it aloud. Their about 24 pages are full of chilling imagery, humor, and the haunting charm of Washington Irving. Do tell us, what do you think is the true moral of the story? We'd like to take a moment to mention that all helpful links, including our Sleepy Hollow travel guide, can be found in the description box below. The artwork and pumpkin carvings featured in this episode are by Jonas, and you can explore more of his work on Etsy or his website. A special thanks to the Historical Society serving Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown for their invaluable knowledge and fact-checking. Since moving to Sleepy Hollow country, we've learned so much from their walking tours and exhibits in Tarrytown, an absolute must for any visitor. We hope you'll add a trip here to your travel bucket list, because this is truly where you can step into the pages of history. And when visiting, please respect the rules at the historic sites. Many are carefully preserved landmarks. Always ensure you have permission before photographing or filming. As we continue uncovering the origins of the Headless Horseman, we'll save the full deep dive for another time. There's simply too much history to cover in just one episode. For now, let's explore a few fascinating facts and answer some of the most curious questions about Sleepy Hollow's enduring legend. And now just a quick moment to thank this video's sponsor. Greetings! This part of the video is sponsored by Pair Eyewear. I realized that it's high time for me to take better care of my eyes with these blue light glasses. If you've been watching for a while, then you know I love styles that can be worn and reworn in different ways, and Pair Eyewear makes that so easy with a snap. Their base frames are so classic and lightweight, and it's so easy to magnetically snap your look in just a few seconds. There are 18 base frames to pick from, and this is the Ella style in black, and I feel like it has such a nice vintage vibe. But if I'm feeling a little more bold, then I can just snap on these red ones. Or if I want to be a little bit more incognito, these purple lenses. Or if I go outside into the sun, just like that, sunglasses. Ordering online was so simple. I used their virtual try-on tool, which is so helpful to see which styles fit your face. There are frames for women, men, and children. Pair offers Premium Plus lenses for those with strong prescriptions. Everything ships so quickly, and there's a 30-day return policy. And what I love about Pair is how affordable and customizable they are. The base frames start at $60 and the top frames start at $25. So it saves so much money and so much space, and it's so satisfying that one pair of glasses can have so many possibilities. And there's new collections releasing all the time. So just click the link in the description and use my code It'sACharmingLife15 to get 15% off your first Pair Eyewear frame. And thank you again to Pair Eyewear for sponsoring this part of the video, and thank you so much for watching. Let's continue. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is largely considered to be America's first fictional ghost story, published in 1820. But what inspired Irving to write such a tale? Washington Irving was born in 1783 in Manhattan, New York, and was named after George Washington, whom he actually met as a 6-year-old boy. As a teenager in the late 1790s, Irving traveled up to the Hudson Valley to escape an outbreak of yellow fever in New York City. He stayed with friend and relative James K. Paulding in Tarrytown, where he spent his days hunting, fishing, and gathering local folklore from the old Dutch settlers of the region. Interestingly, Irving did not write the legend while in the United States. A man of many travels and interests, he spent several years in England where he immersed himself in European folklore. Perhaps during that time abroad he heard tales of Grim Reaper-like headless riders from Ireland's Dullahan to those of Wales and Germany. Legend has it that during a time with his sister Sarah and her husband Henry Van Wart in Birmingham, England around 1818, a conversation sparked his memories of his time in the Hudson Valley. That inspiration led him to write both Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, which became two of his most famous stories and are both Americanized versions of old German folktales. Irving was also known for his satire, wit, and writing under several pen names. In the sketchbook of Jeffrey Crayon, one of Irving's pen names, the first lines of the legend state it was found among the pages of Diedrich Knickerbocker, another of his characters, creating a story within a story. It seems that Irving's heart always belonged to the Hudson Valley. After years of travel and writing, he returned to New York and around 1835 purchased Wolfert's Roost, an old Van Tassel property. He transformed it into his dream cottage called Sunnyside, located in the town now named Irvington in his honor. This home remains a landmark of Hudson Valley history and the legend's legacy. Washington Irving is buried in a family plot on the hillside in Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, where visitors can take lantern tours by night and cross the modern-day Headless Horseman Bridge by day. This beautiful 900-acre cemetery is adjacent to, but separate from, the Old Dutch burying ground, which we'll return to later in our journey. Irving was a fascinating man whose influence reached far beyond Halloween. He also helped shape how Americans celebrate Christmas, but that's a story for another episode. His legacy in Sleepy Hollow may sometimes fade into obscurity, but the locals here won't let that happen anytime soon. To quote Irving, "I am therefore a ready believer in relics, legends, and local anecdotes of goblins and great men, and would advise all travelers who travel for their gratification to be the same. What is it to us whether these stories be true or false, so long as we can persuade ourselves into the belief of them and enjoy all the charm of the reality?" The legend of Sleepy Hollow is set around the year 1790, in the post-American Revolutionary War era. This was around the time Irving first visited Sleepy Hollow as a young stripling. Many of the real locations he drew inspiration from still exist today, allowing visitors to quite literally step back in time. So let's take a little virtual tour through these historic landmarks. Irving opens the story with a beautifully haunting description of the valley. In the bosom of one of those spacious coves which indent the eastern shore of the Hudson, at that broad expansion of the river dominated by the ancient Dutch navigators, the Tappan Zee, there lies a small market town or rural port, which by some is called Greensburg, but which is more generally and properly known by the name of Tarrytown. Not far from the village, perhaps 2 miles, there is a little valley, or rather lap of land among high hills, which is one of the quietest places in the whole world. If ever I should wish for a retreat, whither I may steal from the world and its distractions, and dream quietly away the remnant of a troubled life, I know of none more promising than this little valley. This river-town region has gone by many names over the centuries: Phillipsburg, Beekman Town, North Tarrytown, and of course Sleepy Hollow. The name Sleepy Hollow is believed to come from the Old Dutch, meaning sleeper's harbor or haven, which may have referred to this little valley. Nestled in a secluded glen east of the Hudson River near the Tappan Zee, this area's name carries layers of history. Tappan refers to the Tappan tribe, a Lenape Native American people who once lived along these shores, while Zee, the Dutch word for sea, describes the wide expanse of the Hudson River at that point. This blend of native and Dutch names offers a clue to the area's earliest settlers. Dutch colonists who arrived in the 1640s, around the time the colony of New Amsterdam was eventually taken over by the British and became New York. On a clear day, you can even make out the distant skyline of Manhattan from the Hudson River Walk near the bridge and the lighthouse. Here stands the oldest active church in New York State, the Old Dutch Church, dating back to 1685. The Dutch community's congregation would meet here in Sleepy Hollow. The church remains an active place of worship for the Reformed Church of the Tarrytowns, where special services are still held. Performances of the legend of Sleepy Hollow have taken place here, and even a sighting of the Headless Horseman has been reported during the Old Dutch Church Fest. Visitors are welcome to leave a donation to the Old Dutch Church Roof fundraiser to help preserve this historic gem. Please remember to respect these sacred grounds, as they are an active resting place and not a park. You never know when you might be walking over the unmarked grave of the headless Hessian soldier. We highly recommend a walking tour led by the Sleepy Hollow Historical Society, where history truly comes alive as you wander through the burying grounds, learning about some of the residents' stories and, of course, a few legends too. In the Old Dutch burying grounds, you'll find many epitaphs etched in Old Dutch and notice several Van Tassel headstones, a name as common then as Smith is today. The Historical Society points out several notable individuals resting here who are said to have inspired Irving's characters. Eleanor Laney Van Tassel is believed to have inspired the playful personality of Katrina Van Tassel, while the name itself may have come from her aunt, Katrina Ecker Van Tassel. Brom Bones was said to be based on Abraham Martling, a blacksmith much like Ichabod's boisterous rival. While there are gravestones that are inscribed with the last name Crane, there are still conflicting theories about who inspired Irving's schoolmaster. Some say it was Samuel Youngs, a soldier, lawyer, and schoolmaster originally buried in the Old Dutch burying grounds. However, the name Ichabod Crane seems to have come from a real U.S. Marine officer, Captain Ichabod B. Crane, whom Washington Irving may have met in 1814 at Sackett's Harbor, New York. With a name as distinctive as Ichabod, it's easy to imagine Irving scribbling it down in his notebook for future use. The original wooden bridge that once crossed the Bacantico River has been lost to time. Many visitors expect to find a covered bridge, but there's no evidence that such a bridge ever existed here. The exact location isn't known, though there is a historic marker outside the Old Dutch church indicating where it might once have stood. Towards the end of the legend, Irving writes, "The bridge became more than ever an object of superstitious awe, and that may be the reason why the road has been altered of late years, so as to approach the church by the border of the mill pond." Just a few feet from the marker stands the dramatic Headless Horseman statue, depicting the horseman in pursuit of Ichabod Crane, a favorite photo spot since its unveiling in 2006. Be sure to watch for car traffic here as the statue sits near a busy road. It's an eerie reminder of the legendary chase that, according to the story, reached its terrifying climax near this spot on the Old Post Road. Continue along Route 9 to Phillipsburg Manor, where you can experience what village life might have been like in the early 1700s of Sleepy Hollow. Frederick Phillips I, a Dutch merchant, purchased vast tracts of land from the local Native American tribes and built a mill, manor house, and the Old Dutch church around 1697. Cross the old Mill Pond Bridge to learn how Dutch, African, and Native American cultures became deeply intertwined at this colonial outpost. Heading along Route 9, also called Broadway, you'll come to Patriots Park, named in honor of the local patriots who captured British spy Major John Andre in 1780. A monument still stands here to commemorate the event. The park spans both villages of Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown, and is crossed by the Andre Brook. This was once known as Wiley Swamp, where a giant tulip tree called Major Andre's tree once stood. According to legend, this was the very spot where Ichabod Crane first encountered the Headless Horseman. Today, Patriots Park serves as a shared gathering place for both villages. On weekends, it comes alive with a Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow farmers market, where locals and visitors alike mingle beneath the trees that whisper of history and legend. Irving was quite intentional in weaving real historic events and geography into his story, giving his supernatural legend a remarkable sense of authenticity. Irving humorously explained the origin of Tarrytown's name in the legend. This name was given, we are told, in former days by the good housewives of the adjacent country from the inveterate propensity of their husbands to linger about the village tavern on market days. Be that as it may, I do not vouch for the fact, but merely advert to it for the sake of being precise and authentic. While Irving's version is full of wit, the real name likely derives from the Dutch word for wheat, which likely over time became mispronounced to Tarrytown. The village of Tarrytown today has a population of around 11,000 and is filled with historic charm. It's here that the Van Tassel homestead once stood. The spot is now home to the landmark condominiums. But you can easily imagine Ichabod leaving that harvest frolic evening on his horse Gunpowder, beginning his fateful ride towards Sleepy Hollow. His path would have taken him from Tarrytown, through Patriots Park, and ultimately to the bridge outside the Old Dutch Church, where the horseman's chase reached its chilling end. Irving described Sleepy Hollow as a place where local tales and superstitions thrive best in these sheltered, long-settled retreats. Rockefeller State Park Preserve is one of those very places. North of Sleepy Hollow in Mount Pleasant lies over 1,000 acres of woodlands filled with wildlife and old carriage roads perfect for hiking. These forests hold several legends of their own, such as Raven's Rock, Spook Rock, and the supposed location of the hut of Huldah, the Witch of Sleepy Hollow. Irving referenced many of these in his writings. A drowsy, dreamy influence seems to hang over the land and to pervade the very atmosphere. Certain it is, this place still continues under the sway of some witching power that holds a spell over the minds of the good people, causing them to walk in a continual reverie. The whole neighborhood abounds with local tales, haunted spots, and twilight superstitions. The dominant spirit that haunts this enchanted region and seems to be commander-in-chief of all the powers of the air is the apparition of a figure on horseback without a head. It is said by some to be the ghost of a Hessian trooper whose head was carried away by cannonball in some nameless battle during the Revolutionary War. The specter is known at every country fireside by the name of the Headless Horseman of Sleepy Hollow. So where did Irving find inspiration for his fearsome ghost writer? It could have come from several sources beyond his own imagination. There was a terrible Battle of White Plains in 1776, not far from Tarrytown, where it is said that an American cannon took off the head of a Hessian soldier on October 28. Another possible origin comes from American Major General William Heath, who recorded a skirmish on November 1st, 1776, when a shot from the American cannon at this place took off the head of a Hessian artilleryman. They also left one of the artillery horses dead on the field. The Hessian soldiers were mercenaries hired by the British to reinforce their armies. Hessian refers to the region of Germany from which many came, and they were known as fierce and terrifying fighters. However, some were pressed into service and were likely misunderstood. Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow during the Revolution was a no man's land between patriots and loyalists, and were often attacked. Another story that Irving did not reference tells of a raid on a Van Tassel farm on November 17, 1777. When two Van Tassel brothers were captured and their home was set ablaze. Elizabeth Van Tassel could not find her 2-year-old daughter Leah, whom she feared was trapped in the burning house. According to Elizabeth, a Hessian soldier rescued the little girl from the flames and carried her to safety. The details are a little murky, but legend says that Elizabeth heard of a Hessian soldier that was likely decapitated during the Battle of Young's House in 1780 and wanted to pay the kindness forward. So she gathered some of her relatives to help her bury the Hessian in the Old Dutch churchyard in an unmarked grave. Could this be the true origin story of the Headless Hessian who became a Halloween legend? Irving never specifically wrote that the legend took place on Halloween or that the horseman carried a pumpkin in place of his head, leaving it to the readers to decide whether the figure was a true ghost or perhaps Brom Bones playing a clever prank. We may never know exactly how Irving was inspired to write the legend of Sleepy Hollow, but it's easy to forget that it's a work of fiction. He wove together real history, local folklore, and European legends so convincingly that the Headless Horseman gallops straight into the heart of American mythology and Halloween traditions. So now that we've walked through the pages of history and myth together, how did Sleepy Hollow become the Halloween town that it is today? The short history is that the village was first incorporated as North Tarrytown in 1874. During the Industrial Age, wealthy men like Ambrose Kingsland and John D. Rockefeller brought prosperity to the area, and railroads began running along the Hudson River. A General Motors automobile factory operated on the waterfront from around 1918 to 1996. When it shut down, the village grew concerned for its economic future. That same year, residents voted to change the name from North Tarrytown back to its historic name, Sleepy Hollow, in hopes of promoting tourism and honoring its legendary history. While locals are still divided on whether to call it North Tarrytown or Sleepy Hollow, we like to think Irving would find it a fitting bookend to this chapter of the village's story. What was once a quiet riverside village is now a bustling Halloween town where we don't get much sleep in October. Visitors from all over the world come to experience a Sleepy Hollow Halloween. With the village less than an hour from New York City, it makes for an ideal day trip for city dwellers looking to escape to the Hudson Valley. Each autumn, around 100,000 visitors descend upon the Westchester villages of Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown. Quite a boost for local businesses, though it can be a challenge for the villagers who call it home. Here's a few of our tips to help you plan your trip to Sleepy Hollow for Halloween. Go into your visit with an open mind. The villages may not look like a Tim Burton movie set everywhere you go, but their history is deeply intertwined with the legendary lore. Take the train if you can to cut down on traffic and parking. Book ahead for tours and events, and if you plan to stay overnight, reserve early. Consider visiting on a weekday when the crowds are smaller. September and November are also great months to visit if you want a quieter experience. Be patient if you visit during peak Halloween season, and remember that any time of the year in the Hollow holds its own kind of enchantment. The Historical Society offers tours and exhibits throughout the year with fascinating history. But if you're seeking a true Halloween town experience, the legendary locations around Sleepy Hollow sure know how to put on a show. Sleepy Hollow's main street, Beekman Avenue, greets you with its towering Scarecrow Jack and hosts local businesses, the annual street fair, block parties, and haunted hay rides. Neighboring Tarrytown celebrates with its Halloween parade and block party. The main streets are lined with scarecrows made by the community. The Tarrytown Music Hall has ghost tours, concerts, and film festivals. On Broadway, find one of our favorite local haunts, Horsefeather's Restaurant. It's decorated to the nines for spooky season, where you can see a growing pumpkin patch of Jonas's jack-o'-lanterns. Visit Sunnyside, home of the legend, for daytime tours of Washington Irving's home on the Hudson, and in the evening, stay for a storytelling by master storyteller Jonathan Kruk.
It's Sleepy Hollow. Ah, the horseman appearing. I'll take that. Happy Halloween!
Lyndhurst Mansion is a stunning Gilded Age Gothic Revival manor that Dark Shadow fans will recognize. You can take a tour of Lyndhurst, learning the history and seeing the spooktacular decor on the After Dark tours. The Octagon House is an 8-sided Victorian masterpiece. On a tour, you'll learn about the incredible architecture and well-known ghosts. Phillipsburg Manor Open Air Museum hosts tours in the Twilight Village at night. About 20 minutes north to Van Cortlandt Manor, you can experience the Great Jack-o'-lantern Blaze with thousands of carved pumpkins hosted by the historic Hudson Valley. We hope you feel welcomed to the villages of Sleepy Hollow and Tarrytown. Sleepy Hollow Country has been home to this California girl and Swedish artist for 8 years, and it's where we found a wonderfully spooky community of history lovers and Halloween enthusiasts just like us. We're so happy to share this passion with you. So where did you first hear of the legend of Sleepy Hollow? Was it through the short story, the Disney cartoon, the Tim Burton film, or maybe even Wishbone? Why do you think the Headless Horseman continues to haunt us every Halloween, even after 200 years? And what do you think became of Ichabod Crane? Was it merely Brom Bones playing a prank? Or does the horseman still haunt us? Here in Sleepy Hollow, we'll tell you that the Hessian's ghost lives on in the spirit of Halloween and in the legends that still ride through this valley for those who visit this land of legends, where you can't go anywhere without encountering a reminder of the history and mystery of Sleepy Hollow Country.